Awesome. All right, so the third and final kind of influence you can have from your past, from your history, from your family, from your peers, and really from the surroundings that you've grown up in and have been in for your entire life, are specific incidents. And we've kind of touched on this a little bit lightly as we go through the other two, with verbal and physical actions and other kind of modelings that you might have sort of grown up with. This one's a little bit more in depth, and Ecker, he kind of calls it like specific incidents that condition your mind. These might be experiences where you were young, where you're around money, where you're around wealth, when you're around specifically rich people. And these experiences are extremely important because, if you think about, if you're, say, playing pool, and you've got like the pool table here, and there's like the pockets everywhere, and you hit a ball, right? The most important thing, at least in my opinion, as an amateur, non-professional, honestly don't really play pool that much kind of guy, the most important thing that can ever happen on this pool table is what happens when you hit like the cue ball, what happens at the beginning. And so, if you hit the ball like at the beginning and you just kind of like hit it, say, towards like this ball right here. If you hit it towards that ball right there and it hits it, and then this ball bounces off and it goes into the pocket or something, like that's really, really great. But the most important moment of that system was right here. The most important part is like when you hit the ball. And even though the ball is going to travel so much further than you hitting it, and it's going to have an impact that's going to be much greater than the amount of distance that it takes to actually hit the ball. When you hit the ball, and when you set that object into motion, what you do when you hit it is, and it's only going to be like, say, 5% of the amount of time that it takes for the ball to go and knock everything around. But that 5%, like that moment where you actually make the impact and you take that leap and you shoot, your shot, the amount, like how you angle it is gonna determine the entire result that you get. So if you hit it, but you hit it just a little bit off and it goes over here and you miss this ball and you scratch, like that's all gonna happen because of the way that you kind of line up your shot. And so it's the same thing, as you're going to work on your portfolio, work on your assets, work on your income. Like you've got to sort of hit it in the right way, because any small deviation at the beginning can totally change the entire path that you're on. Like if you think about rolling a ball down a hill, rolling it straight versus rolling it just with a little bit of a curve. If you roll it with just a little bit of a curve, that'll grow and it'll 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 grow. And so it's the same thing really with anything. A little experience, especially when you're growing up, especially when you're really young, can actually become an illusion that you live by years and years and years and years later. Even if, say this is your path, right? And this is like your dream path. This is like the best way to succeed. And, you get like a third of the way through it, and you have just a little tiny shift on your path, right? And at the beginning, it's like, it's pretty small. Like that's a small shift. It's not that big a deal. But if you don't course correct and go back onto your path again, and instead you just let that shift continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, it's gonna grow and grow and grow and grow and grow so much that at the end, it'll be like, holy crap, how did this giant shift happen? And the reason why is because you didn't deal with it when it was small and now it became big, right? And so it's really important to sort of correct these as fast as possible, and get yourself back on the right track, especially if you have anything traumatic, like that can seriously mess you up, even if it doesn't look that big at the beginning, just because of the pure fact of compounding, which, it works in financial markets, right? It'll grow your portfolio, but it can also have an impact on sort of the underlying psychology that you have behind investing, and most significantly behind money management. So that's kind of the goal here. And Ecker, he gives a really, really phenomenal example. This girl named Josie who came, and she always spent all of her money, like forever. And as they dug a little deeper, Josie revealed that when she was 11 years old, she remembers being in a Chinese restaurant with her parents and her sister. And her mom and her dad were having another bitter argument about money, and her dad was standing up screaming and slamming his fist on the table. And she remembered him turning red, then blue, and falling to the floor from a heart attack. Since she was on the swim team at school and had CPR training, she administered CPR, but she couldn't do anything. And her father died in her arms. So from that day forth, her mind linked money with pain. It's this idea of classical conditioning. If you have two stimulus applied at the exact same time, one of them being arguments about money, the other one being your father dying in your arms, you're going to associate money with death, pain, right? And they're going to be linked internally. It's the same thing with any kind of advertising or any kind of marketing. Like, if you have one thing occur, one stimulus occur at the exact same time as another stimulus, like this is, the concept behind crap like Pavlov's dog, like it's the same thing. Like, do you think somebody that goes through this experience is gonna have good money management? Do you think it's a wonder that as an adult she subconsciously got rid of all of her money in an effort to rid herself of pain? Of course not, right? It's absurd. And she became a nurse was because what? She's still trying to save her dad. And that experience shifted the entire course of her life, not because necessarily of the traumatic nature of it, which was definitely a big part, but more importantly, because this happened right here, and she didn't do the most important thing, which is you've got to acknowledge these painful situations. You have to acknowledge these influential, critical situations, or these really, really important, specific incidents. And if you don't acknowledge them and you ignore them, they're just going to manifest subconsciously in negative ways more often than not. But when you acknowledge them, you can sort of work through the process that you've been going through to actually make a shift, make a change, and move it into sort of a better state, move it into a positive outlook so that you can actually have growth from it instead of destruction. And that was exactly what she did. So she had to identify her old money blueprint and revise it. And now she's on her way to becoming financially free. And she, now she's a financial planner, and she's able to shift her whole life because she took action on which she'd acknowledged, and she decided to make a change. And that change allowed her to become financially free and get the results that she wanted because she's able to dissociate her own career from that of her father's and instead focus on her own life as an independent self, which is really, really, really powerful. Another really great example with Ecker himself, when he was talking with his wife, when she was only 8 years old, she would always kind of, hear the ice cream truck coming, and she would ask, her parents for like a quarter, and her mom would say, go ask your dad, he's got all the money. And so she would go ask her dad, and her dad would, give her a quarter, and she'd go get ice cream and be super happy. And this happened week after week, over and over and over again. And so because of this specific incident, she was programmed to think that like men have all the money. And so when she got married, she constantly expected men to have all the money, and she wasn't asking for quarters anymore. In her mind, like, all you could see was men with money. And so it's this idea that like your past will shape your present if you don't make a shift, if you don't make a change and actually visualize where you want your future to be, and then work to make that a reality. And that's, kind of comes back to this core concept of actually creating quality, overarching, long-term goals, which is really, really critical. And you just do that, right, by figuring out like where you want to be, and then finding out like the next logical step to get there, right? And she also, woman didn't have any money, and so if, her mom didn't have any money, obviously this is the way that it should be. And so to validate that, she would subconsciously get rid of all of her money. And, she was really specific. Like, if you gave her $100, this is how most people live. They would spend $100. If she gave her $200, she'd spend $200. Gave her $5,000, she'd spend $5,000. And then Ecker taught her about leverage, so he gave her $2,000, she spent $10,000, which was the wrong way to spend leverage, right? You want to use leverage, at least he was doing it with real estate investing and assets, which is a little bit more specific niche, so we'll kind of get more into that once we get sort of into financial markets and assets. But the thing was that it was her mindset that, woman didn't have any money that caused her to constantly spend her money, which is bogus, right? And the only thing they ever thought about was money, and it cost them their marriage, and they didn't know it at the time. But all they had to do was look at the meanings that each of them attributed to money and realize that they were radically different. To Ecker's wife, money meant immediate pleasure, right? Enjoying ice cream. But on the other hand, Ecker grew up with the belief that money was meant to be accumulated as the means to create freedom. And as far as he was concerned, whenever his wife spent money, she was spending their future freedom. And as far as, she was concerned, whenever he held her back, he was taking away her pleasure in life. So it's really important, especially, you know, as you connect with individuals and you have quality relationships and spouses and whatever, you kind of understand money blueprints, money mindsets, because if you're not in sync, and specifically if you're not following the budgeting that we set out in like the first week, or the second week, like that's critical, that's key, and that'll sort of fix this whole problem for you, because it makes it very systematic. It makes it, you know, so that it's not an emotional decision anymore. You just follow the budget and you're set. Same thing, like if you're with relationships, if you want to apply that budget, like the only thing you do differently is you have sort of separate accounts. So for like the 10% to spend on whatever you want, like you both can spend it on whatever you want and not, you know, worry about conflict at all. It's pretty basic. It's the same exact same formula pretty much. It all just comes down to having a system and then following that system over and over and over again. And for the stuff that's like free and you know, pleasure fun, like you can kind of do whatever you want with it, right? Because it's, you know, you just follow the budget and you'll be solid. And that was kind of what he did, and that's kind of how he moved on from that. Which is good because they learned how to revise each other's money blueprints and create a third money blueprint specifically for the relationship, right? So you're gonna have that overarching blueprint that's specifically for the relationship, and that's why you have your budget. And then he talks about a cool success story from one of his clients, which is awesome, and it's just a lot of fun. Talking about this idea that you want to have, you know, multiple streams of passive income and especially asset income, instead of, you know, trading, you know, hours for dollars, stuff like that. And you know, how that creates self-respect, how it creates confidence, how it creates hope. And really the core comes down to truly believing that you deserve to be wealthy, and then actualizing that by managing your money and becoming financially free using the power of your millionaire mind, which is really, really inspirational, really, really powerful. That was kind of the big takeaway for Ecker that kind of allowed him to, you know, not have to argue with his wife about money anymore. And it totally changed everything for him because they were able to overcome this specific incident. And he talks a little bit more here about how, you know, money is the #1 cause of all relationship breakups, which, you know, I've seen firsthand. It's totally true. The biggest reason is because people don't understand the blueprints of each other, not necessarily the money itself, but really it's the blueprints and understanding that, you know, saving versus spending and like where you want to be on that spectrum will determine almost exclusively like how much wealth you create based off how much money that you invest into assets. Personally, like investing in assets is literally the most fun thing for me, like on the planet, and it's the coolest thing ever. And so like there's like why would you want to do anything but invest in assets, right? It's like, come on, man. But it kind of depends on your situation. But really, this applies to married couples, applies to dating couples, applies to families, applies to business associates, applies to personal self. It all just kind of comes down to dealing with blueprints, not money. And once you recognize that a person's blueprint is different than yours, you can deal with them in a way that works for both of you. And you can become aware of their blueprint and their money files, that they're not the same as yours, and kind of tackle that problem, that challenge, instead of like, you know, there's not enough money in the budget, we need to cut something. Because if you just deal with it on the surface without actually dealing with the underlying differences, then, you know, over the long term, you're gonna have a lot more difficulties versus just taking the time at the beginning to go through and understand where people are coming from, what their perspective is. You understand that, you make a shift, you make a simple agreement, and in the future, all your challenges are significantly easier. They're all solved for you because you agree on the foundation, which is really, really, really critical. And that's exactly what they do here, which works out really, really well. I want to understand others' motivations, others' fears, like what actually makes them tick. And then once you do that, like you can really connect with them on a personal level and move forward, and create a much stronger connection with others and get what you really want by blessing others, and most significantly, kind of by alleviating sort of the biggest cause of pain for anyone, for any connection, by understanding exactly where others are coming from, and then being able to shift your budgeting, shift your spending, shift your investing accordingly based on, you know, hopefully a sound budget, and sort of what we've gone through earlier on with the you know, the golden plan and the budget. So that's really critical, and kind of the core here with specific incidents is understanding, you know, where your past comes from, where you are, and then how to get to where you want to be in the future, which is hopefully following a quality budget that then turns into assets that create income and revenue and growth and real savings and retirements for you over time. And so to kind of, sum up this idea of specific incidents, a lot of it here is based sort of on like partners. So, if you're deeper into a connection, deeper into a relationship, it's really critical you take a moment to do sort of an independent exercise where you create a blueprint, you create a plan for like an actual partnership with someone, especially if you're really, really close, you're like living together, whatever, and you're sharing money and income and, statements and credit. It's definitely really, really, really critical that you sort of come together, make a plan, and really just follow the budget we established earlier as a unit, as a connection, as a couple, and make sure that obviously there's freedom to do what you want, the other people can do what they want. And at the core, you really just want to make sure that you have general goals and attitudes that are positive in regards to money and success, and then kind of create a list of these attitudes and actions that you can live by, everyone can live by, and write them down over and over and over again, post them, and constantly come back to them. So with that said, we're going to finish up this chapter the same way as other chapters, right? You want to take, paper, if you haven't gone through anything yet, and if there are any really specific emotional incidents you've experienced around money when you were young, you want to become aware of those experiences. So write down those experiences and then understand sort of how these specific emotional incidents may have affected your current financial life. And now that you know what it is, you want to dissociate that from, dissociate it and understand that like, this way of being is only what you learned, and it isn't you. You want to be able to see that you have a choice in the present moment to be different. And once you understand that you have a choice to be different and it's not actually you want to place your hand on your heart, do the exact same thing we've been doing over and over and over again. I release my non-supportive money experiences in the past and create a new and rich future. And then you declare the positive equivalent of whatever it is that you've experienced. I have a millionaire mind. And that's sort of the blueprint. That's the message. And that's the third, thing that could really be holding you back. It's the third specific step for change. And hopefully, once you go through all that, you will be whooshed away. All that past negativity, all those past experiences will be gone. You'll be in a perfect prime state to moving on now to actually setting up the right mindsets and the significantly critical millionaire mind. So with that said, thank you so much. Go out there, apply it, absolutely crush it, and I will see you in the next module. Thanks. Bye.